Okay, kids, you've been waiting for it. It's Clan Assault Mech time. I'm going to be rating the Clan Assault Mechs from 3050 today. Now, if you've been watching this series already, you know how I do my ratings, but if you're new, the way that I do it is I grade the mechs from A through F, and then I say, well, what is the best variant of each mech overall for fighting, regardless of what it costs. Then I say, what's the best variant in terms of how good a deal it is for your battle value if you're paying for it in a game. And then I'll pick maybe an honorable mention variant that is also potentially useful in combat. Now, zooming out for a second, there's two kinds of clan assault mechs in this period. There's two kind of pairs of mechs. There are the slower ones with hoods, and there are the faster ones that look like pro wrestlers. Okay, and the general rule is that the ones with hoods are extremely good, and the pro wrestler ones are just pretty good. So the lightest clan assault mech from this period is one of the pro wrestler ones. That's the Man-O-War or the Gargoyle, right? So this mech is basically, like, if you look at the chassis itself, it's kind of like a somewhat less good, less optimal version of the Mad Cat, okay? It's just a Mad Cat where it's like a little heavier than it needs to be and kind of wastes too much tonnage on an engine. Other than that, it's very close to a Mad Cat. It just has somewhat less good armor, basically, than a Mad Cat does. It's like a less heavily armored Mad Cat that has also a bunch of fixed heat sinks, which creates some weirdness with quite a few of the variants, including the Prime variant. So this is a mech that I'm giving a B to because, you know, the chassis isn't perfect. Obviously, it's a worse version of the Mad Cat, but as we've seen, the Mad Cat is extremely good. So like a somewhat downscale version of the Mad Cat is actually still pretty good. And also some of the variants of the Gargoyle are really effective, and they kind of fill these roles that are pretty unique for clan mechs in some ways. At least the Prime variant does. So it turns out to be a pretty good mech, even though it's not especially optimized. So the best fighter for this chassis is the Man-O-War D, which is not a kind of like super special, ultra powerful mech, but it's just a solid one. And it has a number of strengths. I mean, the main thing about this mech, targeting computer plus energy weapons. Okay, targeting computer plus extended range large lasers, that's very good because you're getting great two-hit numbers at very long ranges. And then targeting computer plus medium pulse lasers at closer range means light mechs cannot escape your attacks. So this thing is going to just butcher light mechs if they get anywhere near it. So it's just a very nice, it's kind of like it can start out as a long-range sniper and close in steadily with that nice 5/8 speed like the heavies have. And once it gets closer, again, it's just the bane of any light mechs in the vicinity, and really any heavier mechs too, because it's going to be putting out a significant amount of damage with all the heat sinks it's got and all of those lasers. So this is just a really nice mech, right? This is an effective mech, and it's actually a really good deal for the battle value too. Like, not an amazing deal, but definitely a good enough deal that I would play with it in a competitive game. So I do recommend this mech quite strongly. It's a nice one. Now, the best deal for the battle value is an extremely cheap mech, which is the Prime. Now, it's not the best deal for the battle value if you're looking at it as kind of like a one-on-one fighter. Like if you had X amount of battle value and you were dueling or something like that, I would not take this mech because it doesn't carry that much of a punch. Basically, though, this mech is kind of almost the one and only mech that fills a kind of role that you might think of as, like, for example, the role that the Charger carries for the Inner Sphere, right? The original Charger. It basically is kind of like a clan version of the original Charger. It's a mech that has really low offensive weapon power, but it's got high speed, high physical attack power, and heavy armor. And so you just kind of get this thing in your enemy's face and try to draw their fire with it, right? You get it up close to them where they can't ignore it. Those 12 SRMs are going to be dangerous potentially, and late in the game those two LB5Xs are going to be really good at crit seeking. So, you know, opponents are going to start, especially as the game goes on, to become scared of this mech because it's going to be able to fire at any mechs that have been damaged, had their armor removed, and just inflict a bunch of critical hits. So they're going to want to get it off the board. So they're going to start directing fire at this armored brick, which you haven't spent that many battle value for, especially by the standards of like clan battle value costs. I mean, the other thing that the Gargoyle Prime excels at is some kind of limited duties. Like, it's excellent at anti-air with those two LBXs, and it's really excellent at anti-vehicle work. If you need something to shoot at a tank with, this thing is very likely to inflict mobility crits and other critical hits on a vehicle. So you take this thing, if your enemy has vehicles, armored vehicles, tanks, you take this thing against them, you put it into the side arc, the big side arc of those tanks, and just fire into their sides, and you will knock out their treads real fast. So this is an excellent anti-vehicle mech. You know, when I was a kid, I used to think, man, the Man-O-War Prime sucks, right? It doesn't do that much damage at all for how heavy it is. That's true, but actually it doesn't suck, right? It has some very useful roles on the battlefield, and you know, you don't want to take a star that's entirely mechs like this, but having one mech like this in your star is really useful. An honorable mention goes to the kind of obligatory Ultra AC-20 variant, which also packs a whole bunch of ER mediums, which the mech can fire easily because of its heat sinks. So, you know, the nice heat sinks on this mech covered with, you know, combined rather with all of these just heavy damage short range weapons, that's pretty good, right? So this is a good mech too. Okay, so the 85 tonner, of course, is the legendary Masakari or Warhawk. You know, this thing is a absolute destroyer of mechs. It's an incredible design. You know, every variant comes with a targeting computer, and targeting computer is just one of the nicest components from this period. So it's a mech with incredible combat capabilities, decent speed at 4.6. You know, you can't complain about what this thing can do. It is a dangerous combatant, and you will always be happy with how it can function on the battlefield. So I give it an A. Now the best fighter, and it's not terribly close, is the Masakari C. When I was a kid, you know, when somebody would say Masakari C, you would be like, oh my god, you know, that is a mech that I'm afraid to see on the other side of the board, right? It has 50 heat worth of weapons and 46 heat worth of heat sinks. So this thing can open up with all of its long range weapons and, you know, not overheat to the point where it's slowing down in one turn. So that's super nice, way better than the Prime variant. And it's got 2 large pulse lasers, which are combined with its targeting computer. So you are getting hit with some insanely powerful clusters of damage with this mech. 2 ERPPCs, 2 large pulse lasers, and they're hitting with that extra targeting computer bonus. You know, you just put like a regular inner sphere level gunner with gunnery skill 4 in this mech, and they're going to hit the enemy frequently and easily. And it's also a nice mech to just take down light mechs at long range with those large pulse lasers, because those things, you know, you can bring down a light mech at medium range for those large pulse lasers, 14 hexes, before it even gets close enough to get a shot off at you a lot of the time. So excellent light mech sniper, excellent sniper in general. There's nothing bad to say about the Masakari C, except that the battle value cost, of course, is really high, but you get what you pay for. The best battle value deal, though, is 600 BV points less, and this is a mech, you know, I have a video up about this. This is a mech that I took in a tournament a little while ago, and it performed super great. You know, it's just a really nice jack of all trades, long range fighter that is not weak once you get in close either with its Streak SRM-6. It's got excellent crit seeking abilities with those streaks with this LB-10X. It can shoot down aircraft with that LB-10X. And, you know, as I've said, ER large lasers plus a targeting computer, that's a sweet combination, right? So, you know, this is a mech that is an affordable Masakari, and it's really not that much weaker. You know, it's noticeably weaker than the Masakari C, but it's not 600 points weaker. So the Masakari A, it's just a really nice mech for how much you pay for it. Honorable mention goes to the Prime variant, which is obviously super powerful. It just overheats so much that, yeah, you know, you don't necessarily, you definitely, like, very rare are the turns when you want to fire everything on the Masakari Prime. Almost never. I'm not sure I have ever had a turn in BattleTech where I was controlling a Masakari Prime and I felt like it was a good idea to shoot all 4 ERPPCs plus the LRM-10. Okay, so yeah, it's a mech that runs too hot, but other than that, it's very powerful. You don't want to take this in a battle value balanced game because it costs more BV than the Masakari C, and you would always rather have a Masakari C. So that makes the Warhawk Prime kind of a suboptimal design in the sense that if you're playing for BV, there's just always a better choice. You always want Masakari C over Masakari Prime. Okay, so the other wrestler looking mech is the Gladiator. And this is the one that I'm rating the lowest, giving it a B-. A lot of the configurations have good weapons, but the armor is not so great. And in particular, the armor placement on the Gladiator is not ideal. So that's why I'm rating it lower than the other ones. But it's definitely not terrible, and there are some good variants. Now, in particular, the best fighter variant, the Gladiator A, 3 large pulse lasers. Okay, so this mech brings the hurt for sure, especially against light mechs at long range again, right? So this thing can really take out light mechs at long range. I mean, I do just have my quarrels with the Gladiator chassis, right? I don't know why you want to combine mask and jump jets. If you've got the kind of extra mobility from the jump jets, that's going to mean you don't want to use the mask very many turns, right? Because a lot of turns you'd rather use the jump jets than the mask. So you're just paying that battle value and tonnage for the mask, and you're not going to use it that much. So, you know, the other thing to notice about the Gladiator is if you look at the side torso armor, it's really light for how heavy the armor on this mech is overall. This mech has 32 points on each arm and 20 points on each front side torso. And it's got an XL engine. So those side torsos are going to fall off real quick, and when they do, the mech will count as crippled. Okay, and it'll have to start retreating if you're playing for forced withdrawal, all those kind of things. So this mech has significant weaknesses in terms of the side torso armor. Another problem with this variant in particular, I mean, a problem that a lot of clan mechs have, is that the weapons are so concentrated in the arms that once the arms get blown off, the mechs turn into, you know, weaklings. And the Gladiator A has this problem to a great extent because all 3 of those amazing large pulse lasers are clustered in the left arm. So if you lose the left torso or you lose the left arm, then this mech is a lot less good all of a sudden. So, I mean, on the whole, yes, this is a very effective fighter just because anything with 3 large pulse is going to be a very effective fighter, but I wouldn't pay the battle value for it. I just wouldn't. Right, so the Gladiator Prime is significantly cheaper than that Gladiator B, and it still has a lot of strength as a long-range fighter. You know, you've got a Gauss rifle, 2 ER large. It kind of hits like a 30-50 Banshee does, except with, you know, longer range even. So it's an impressive mech in terms of its offensive capabilities. Too many heat sinks, not sure why they did that to it, but whatever. But yeah, it's just, again, you know, I've got it highlighted here, right? There's not enough side torso armor, and that's a significant weakness. So, I mean, this is the one Gladiator, though, where I could see paying the battle value for it from this period, because it's not that expensive for what you get, so it's playable for sure. Okay, the Daishi or the Direwolf, right? I mean, do I even need to say it? It's a 100-ton mech, maximum armor, you know, as much tonnage as possible devoted to weapons within the constraint that it has maximum armor. So yeah, it's an A+, right? You know, that many tons worth of clan weapons is always going to give you just an incredible punch, and that many tons worth of armor is always going to give you incredible resilience. So this mech is just the battleship of BattleTech. You know, there's no way to deal with it aside from just, you know, fight it real hard and hope that you have a shot. Now this mech also has a variant with 3 large pulse lasers, the Direwolf A, and this is a lot better than that Gladiator with 3 large pulse. The crazy thing is you spend less battle value for this Daishi A than you do for that 3 large pulse laser Gladiator, but the Daishi A, you know, it's just no contest, right? It's absolutely incredible. Those 3 large pulse, you know, man, that is firepower and accuracy, an incredible mech, and you've got a Gauss rifle to back it up at long range, and then at short range you've got 2 Streak SRMs for crit seeking. So, you know, there's just nothing bad to say about this mech, and it's got plenty of heat sinks to fire all of its weapons consistently. Honestly, even though 2855 battle value is expensive, it's a good deal for what you get with the Daishi A. This is just an amazing mech. And indeed, you know, it's so amazing that I'm giving the A the best battle value deal honor as well, because 3 large pulse and a Gauss for 2855 with that much armor protecting the mech, you know, who wouldn't like this, right? I mean, this mech is going to be illegal in a lot of tournament play, because a lot of tournaments will limit the number of points of clan pulse damage that you can have, and 30 would be over the limit in a lot of games. But if you are allowed to take this mech, yeah, I would pay that battle value for it, no question. And you don't even really need to level up the gunner on this Daishi, because, you know, most of its firepower comes from large pulse lasers, which are effectively like having 2 points better gunnery skill. And then honorable mention is going to go to the Prime variant. This is also nice for its battle value. It just, you know, it brings an incredible punch, 4 ER large, and it can fire those 4 ER large fairly consistently. Or you can fire 3 of them and then just a whole set of other weapons. It's got medium pulse lasers to, you know, fight something that's in close. And a thing to remember about this Daishi is that it has flippable arms. So if somebody comes into your rear torso with your, you know, with their light mechs, you know, thinking, oh, I'm going to get rear torso shots against a Daishi Prime. Well, I mean, yeah, you'll take some rear armor damage perhaps, but in exchange, you get to flip your arms and fire 4 medium pulse lasers into that light mech. So the light mech's probably not going to last that long, right? So even backstabbing this thing is not an especially ideal strategy to use against it. It's definitely a very, very solid mech. Okay, so just to recap, clan assault mechs with hoods, they're incredible. They're A or better level mechs. Clan assault mechs that have, you know, a burly, tough-looking face, they're still pretty good, but they are less good than the hooded mechs. And yeah, you know, but you take any of these mechs that I've listed today into the field, you're not going to go wrong, right? They're all dangerous mechs. Clan firepower plus the resilience of an assault mech platform. It's a recipe for something that your opponents are going to be really scared by, and rightly so. So, you know, if you get the chance to play with these mechs, you're going to enjoy it, you're going to have fun, and your opponent might not have so much fun. All right, you guys have a good one.